last week we started coding Tetris. This week, let's drop straight into it and complete it. Yeah, so like I said, let's just drop straight into it
and finish it.
And finish it off, right?
Nice.
Is there anything that we need to
discuss? So where were we when we last
Good question. Good question. Let me just switch cameras over here. All right. So now that we have that, we just left it here like this, and where we could rotate the pieces, where
and it was falling.
Yeah, we could move it. There are some obvious issues over here that we'll need to handle. We will handle them and we'll finish them up today.
Got it.
So one thing that you'll notice is that I'm not able to go all the way to the right or to the left. We will handle those issues. We also haven't handled things like how do we settle this, right? I mean, what do I mean by settle? It means when it reaches the bottom or when it reaches another piece that is already there at the bottom, so things like that. Rotation also we have handled, but there are some obvious issues. Like I could do this. Okay, this piece doesn't show a rotation issue. But take a look at this. I could do this. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Right. I mean, there are some. I'll show you what the issues are. But anyways, we need to handle that rotation and anything. But I thought we'll start with something very simple to handle, and we'll finish that.
Got it.
So I have like a nice little presentation going on. Okay. So the thing is, if you look at any implementation of Tetris, these pieces that are like falling down or pieces that are already settled or anything, they appear beveled, right? And by beveled, it looks almost as if it is 3D, right? And we want to like sort of handle that. How do we handle that? It's actually quite it's a very simple effect that you can do. So let's say I need to draw a piece with this specific yellow color that I'm pointing out in the center. The only thing that you need to do is have these lines appear on the top and on the left of a lighter shade, and on the right and on the bottom they are of a darker shade.
Wow.
And when this entire thing is like miniaturized, it will look as if it's like a beveled piece, right? As if it sort of rises up or
so the diagonal thing that I see on the corners, that's not something you have drawn. It's come up because of the
yeah, exactly. Right. So that effect has like sort of come up all by itself. But you can ignore. You can like ignore.
No, it looks nice. I'm just saying it's not something we have done.
We've not. Yeah, I mean it's not something that
it's visible because of the lines.
Yes.
Okay.
So going to the code, let's just look at what are how we draw the piece. And if you look at it, I mean we just say begin path. We just have a rectangle that is drawn, and then
quite
we have
basic.
This one on it. So we need to draw it of this color. So there is a specific color. I need it to be lighter, and I also need it to be like a little bit darker, for it to appear. So I'm going to write a new function, and I'll call this function draw piece. All right. Now this draw piece, I will need to draw it at a very specific location. Correct. So I will take those as parameters: x, y, width, and height. And I also need to like take in a color. And then I also need to say, okay, make it lighter as well as darker. So to make my life a little bit simpler, I'm just going to say RGB, meaning I get all of the colors also along with it. To start it off, all right, so let's say if this is the piece that I need to draw, I first need to draw this line and I need to draw this line. So so it's from x, y to x plus width, height. As we go on, you will understand what's happening. So the top and the left hand corners are or the left side corners are a little bit lighter. So we'll set that color. All right. So which is context dot. So those are going to be lines. So I'm going to say context dot stroke style, right? And these lines also need to be a little bit thicker. So let me just make sure that the line width, for example, I'm just arbitrarily setting this as 4, and we'll adjust this as we need to. So I'll just say RGBA. This would be R plus G plus B, right? Followed by, I'm going to say that the alpha for this one is going to be 1.0. All right, which means it will be like, fully bright. So whatever color you pass, the outside layer would be like, fully bright. I'm sorry, the top and the left hand corners would be fully bright. So I'll say, and yeah, to start it off, I'll say I'm basically going to draw a line. So I'll just say context dot move to x comma y, and then context dot line to. So remember, I'm drawing something from this position to this position. So x comma y. So that should be x plus w comma y, right? And context dot stroke. And before I do a stroke, I also need to do a begin path. So I have these 4 statements. I need to do the exact same thing, but in the downward direction. So once again, it moves to x comma y, but it moves to x plus height, x plus height. So we've taken care of this and we have taken care of this. Now let's take care of these 2 lines. Okay. Same thing, but I'm going to draw it in a lighter shade, I mean, which means I'm going to reduce its alpha. And for this, let me just say that the alpha is 0.6. We'll adjust it as we see fit. Okay. So we'll move to x plus y plus h. Okay. We're basically moving the line to over here, and then we'll draw the line to over here. So that would be x plus width comma y plus h. Okay. That's one. And once again, we'll move to, let's say, x plus w and y plus h, which means I'm moving over here, and then I'm going to draw a line back over here. Okay. So that would just be x plus w.
No, that will be to x.
It would just be
x,
to
na?
x, right? No, it's not x comma, and
y
it will be y
plus
plus h.
Yeah.
Right? So I have this. So I have taken care of the outside borders. Now I need to take care of the inside rectangle.
Okay.
And that would be, I mean, that needs to have its own fill style. So I'll say fill style the same, but make sure that it is 0.8.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And why am I saying it is 0.8? Because this original color would be in between this color and this color.
Right.
That's all I'm basically doing. Let's say context dot begin path as per usual, context dot rect, and rect would be, the thing is, I need it to be appearing within the lines that I have drawn, right? I mean, it shouldn't completely overlap it. So for now, I'm just giving like a 2 pixel gap, right? And we'll adjust this as needed, -5. All right. So it basically, the rectangle will start 2 pixels away. Remember that the line itself is 4 pixels.
Right.
So I'm,
why not 4?
Yeah. I mean, my fear is that the rectangle would become too small or something like that. And then, and then h minus 5, which will sort of, I think, if I'm not wrong, what will happen is that it will leave like a very thin black line that will add to that whole beveled accent that we were looking for. All right. With that being done, we can like sort of comment this whole thing out, and I can just say draw piece, right? I mean, we called it draw piece. So that would be x plus 1 comma y plus 1 comma cell size minus 1. So cell size minus 1, and then RGB. So what is this? So this is 55 FF 55. This is 1. So that it's a slightly greenish color. So red is 85. I know, and then 255 comma 85. So this should be that green color that we were looking for. Similarly, if it is 2, we wanted to make it yellow. So I'm doing the exact same thing. Right, so I have the cell size is the same, except I think blue would be 0. Oh, I'm sorry, it would be 255, and then 0. All right. So this should give us a beveled look. All right. So remember that we are setting. So remember that we are in the draw piece, we are doing this line width is equal to 4. So we need to reset the line width back to 0.2. I think we had it last time. That's number 1. And we also need to set the color as well, right? So, so we did this. We did this line width is equal to 0.2 in the init function, but we no longer have to keep it there. We can, so this is the rect. Yeah. And we can just do it over here.
Okay.
Right? So that it will have this one, and then it will have the stroke style as well. Oh, you know what? I need to reset the stroke style every time it needs to do this. Yes.
And the width.
And the line width also. Not just once, but I need to do it every time it needs to draw this one. So let's just go back. Does this give you that beveled look?
Yeah.
Right? I think the outer borders on the right hand side are a little bit
something, little.
Right?
I see. This piece looks quite nice. Yeah. I know what you're saying about the black line.
Yeah, the black line, right?
Right.
So this is 0.8. This is 0.6. I've given, and this is 1.0. So I think we can
keep it like this.
Yeah. Hold on. What am I missing? So this is 0.6.
I think it's that W minus 5 H minus 5.
Yeah. I think it's got something to do with this. All right. Let's just, so this is X, and so this we have taken care of. So X plus W and Y plus H would definitely bring it to this location, and then it needs to go to the left hand side, basically line 2, right?
Yeah.
So it would be a line 2. So this is X. I mean, it's just
X and Y plus H is correct.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm saying that there is an issue is because we have already visited this location. Okay. Okay. Oh, or maybe this one.
Fine. We are not going in a square. You went this and this.
Yeah.
And then you're doing this and so that's fine.
This is fine. Okay.
So I'm just wondering about the W minus 5.
There it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so for this one, we are basically moving to X plus W, comma Y. So this should be X plus W, comma Y.
Okay. Move 2 was the mistake.
Move 2 was the mistake.
Got it.
I think so. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
So that does give you like a nice beveled look that we were looking for.
Nice.
Correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Right. All right. So let's just do some housekeeping before we proceed. All right. So first things, I mean, let me just remove this.
Extra.
I mean, I don't need this anymore, so I'll just remove this. All right. Another thing that I changed from last week was, remember, we called this current piece. We call this current piece because it was easier to write at the time. Yeah. But just to keep everything consistent, I have now called it current tetromino. All right. So it's going to be current tetromino, just to make sure that everything is consistent.
Okay.
All right. Having said that, let's just move to this, to the question of how do you settle a piece. All right. A piece is considered settled, or it has come down to the bottom if it reaches the bottom, that is the row of the current tetromino exceeds the row available in this Tetris array. It reaches. If it lands on another settled piece, so it's either 1, 2, and the third thing we'll have to remember is that, remember, all of our Tetris pieces, we are giving them the value 1, right? Or the active cells in that piece, we are calling them 1. The intention I have is that once they have settled, I will mark them with 2. This will make it easier for us to sort of identify which are settled pieces and which are not. Now this is important for the next part at least, or for the part that comes after this. All right. One condition that we have for this tetromino drop is, remember, all of our cells are evenly sized. So a Z piece, for example, is always 3 by 3, even though it doesn't need to be. But the reason why we made it is because it's easier for us to rotate it. So the thing is, when it settles down, we'll have to ensure that this is not the right way to do it, but this is the right way to do it, because this is not it cannot settle on that one. Another thing is that when it settles, remember, a piece before this has already settled, for example, showing in green. So when this piece comes down, it needs to fit in properly over here. So those are the two conditions that we need to check for what we are about to do next. All right. So having said that, the way we are dropping our pieces, all right, just to recap it a little bit, we have a function called Tetris, where we basically This is our loop function. Game loop. That is, calls itself once every 300 milliseconds. And it does a drop piece. It transposes the piece, meaning copies the value from the current tetromino onto the board. And then it basically draws the board itself. All right. The drop piece is the one that essentially increments the rows, but then it doesn't do anything beyond that, right? It needs to check if a dropped piece has finally settled or something, okay? And to handle that, let's just handle that, right? And the best way to do it would be through a function. So I'll just say function, and let's call it is settled, right? We'll just call it is settled. How do we know if it is settled? So I can just say for. I mean, it's the same loop that I'll have to do. So I'm just going to copy it from, let me just copy it from here. All right. I'm just copying this for the loop, for nothing else. The condition inside would be completely different. All right. First things first. It is settled. Remember our first condition. It is settled if it is, the zero shouldn't be there. Basically, we should be ignoring zeros.
Right.
Is what I'm trying to say. So I'll say if current tetromino of I of j is equal to 0, just ignore it. I'll just say continue. Ignore it. Okay. Next thing. How is it settled? It comes down and clashes with the bottom of the right? Yeah. And to do that, all I have to do is say if I plus rho. Remember, this rho represents the current row we are in, right? Or this piece is in. I plus current row is less than Tetris array dot length minus 1. Basically, our length, minus 1. So I have this also. I think an easier way to do it or to understand that is to just say rows minus 1, because remember, rows is a constant over here that basically defines how many rows we have. Correct. So we can just use this instead of Tetris array dot length, because it doesn't matter what is the size of our the device that you're actually playing this in. The number of rows and the columns would always be the same, whether you're doing this on a mobile or on a desktop. The rows would not change. So I have this also. If this is done, I'm just going to return a true, signifying that this piece has settled. I mean, the job of this function is to basically determine if it is settled or not. Okay. It is settled if it has reached the bottom, which is, signified by this. I can just say, all right. Or it is settled if it is on top of another settled piece, reached or on top of another piece. And how do we do that? Remember what I'm doing, going back to the presentation over here. Remember this condition? We'll mark a settled piece with 2. So if there is already a 2 over here, and if I bring this 1 on top of this, what would be the total? 3. If the sum of this one cell plus the current tetromino that you're falling into is 3, then I know that you have settled. That's the intention I have. Sure. So I'll just say.
But RK, before you go ahead, this I plus rho, is it greater than or should be less than?
You are absolutely right. It is greater than.
Right. No?
Yeah,
because
it's come down. It's not going up.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. And glad you spotted that. This is one of the uses of
having
another set of eyes on this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if Tetris array of I plus rho, or wherever it is going to settle, j plus call plus current tetromino of I of j is equal to 3. If the values in those two cells ever become 3, you know that this is on top of another settled piece. Right? And I'll just say return true. Right? It is settled on top of another piece. In all other cases, I'll just say return false.
Okay.
Right? That's all I have to do. Now I have this is settled function, which is ready to use on our drop piece. So I'll say, So after I increment a row, I'll say if is settled. If it is settled, basically it means that it has reached the bottom, and I'll have to start with a new random tetromino. Correct?
Yeah.
Where are we creating that new random tetromino? Right over here. So we'll just basically take this and we'll put it over there. Basically start out with a new piece altogether.
Okay.
Start out with a new piece altogether. However, remember that we are saying that now it has settled. And what we said was that once it settles, we'll mark that as 2.
Right.
What do we do with that 2? Remember our draw function. If it is true, we draw it in a yellow color. That's the intention we have. So let's mark it also as 2's, right? So I'll say once again, it's the same loop that I'll have to use. I'm just going to copy this, right? So over here, it would be, I'll have to mark the Tetris array, not the current tetromino, right? So it is Tetris array of I plus row. I'm going to put a -1 over here, j plus col. I'll explain to you why it is -1 in just a minute. Now remember, we are doing a row plus plus.
Got it.
Right? Is settled will check if after doing the row plus plus, if it has gone and met another thing. I'm just saying row -1 so that it basically reverts back the row plus plus that we are doing over here.
Yeah.
That's the intention I have. Let's play this and see if this works. Whoop.
Gone.
Yeah. Why? Take a guess. But you can see that a new tetromino. Basically, our condition is working. I can tell you now that the condition is working because there is a new
piece
thing.
New
piece that has come. Right? You can see that it actually. Okay. Yeah. Don't worry about this, but you can see that a new tetromino will come along.
Sure. Got it.
But it disappears. And the reason for that is the transpose piece. Remember, in this transpose piece, we are saying all of the cells are 0. Basically, we need to reset the board.
Right.
So I am just going to say that only if it is 1, mark it as 0, or else just leave it as it is. Does that make sense? Okay. This transpose piece is supposed to copy the piece, the current tetromino onto the Tetris array. Before we do that, we clear out everything from the Tetris array, and then we
we are clearing out everything.
We clear out everything, including pieces that have settled.
Right.
Here I'm saying only clean out pieces that have a 1 in them, meaning pieces that are not yet settled.
Okay.
If there is a piece that is not yet settled, only clear those out and then do this.
Okay. I see
right?
What you're saying.
And then you can just drop the current tetromino.
Okay. Understand.
Right? Okay. Now let's see what happens. Yellow.
Whoa! The whole
matrix became yellow. So what are we missing? We're basically
not checking.
We're not. Yeah. So remember where we are assigning the 2 over here. We will only assign 2 if this is 1. If the current tetromino.
Yes.
So if the current tetromino of I of j is equal to 1, only those values you assign it to.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully this works now.
Okay.
Speed this up just a little bit, Tam. Oh, come on. Okay, I'll tell you what is happening with this. Yes, we did manage to settle them down.
Ooh.
Yes. So that we will handle. Oh
right.
Yeah, it didn't actually sit on top of a settled piece.
Right.
Yeah, that we'll handle, not a problem. But you can see that
this one works perfectly.
Yep.
This also works.
Yeah, this also works. Yeah. It's just a very simple condition that we'll have to handle now. But yeah.
Okay.
This one we'll handle now.
Got it.
All right. So what is happening over here is that, let's say I have a piece, right? And if I bring it down, you will see that other pieces are getting, they just basically disappear, which is not optimal.
Right.
All right. And the thing is, For that, we just need to, okay, so remember the transpose piece, the current tetromino, we're just basically copying it over to the Tetris array.
Right.
Instead of that, let me just do a plus equal to current tetromino. So whatever value is there in the current tetromino will be added to it.
Yeah.
So if it is 0 in that case, it will just, I mean, if there is a piece with a 1 over there, and if it's a 0, it will just remain. It will just remain as such.
Yeah.
And that should basically take care of, you know.
Which is why the piece with the 0 which is leading was making everything disappear.
All right. So you can see that, come on, I was expecting some other piece. But there you go. If I have this one, this was actually, this wouldn't work, but now it will. And so basically we have taken care of the settling part of it. We'll also have to take care of the other conditions and all. But I just wanted to sort of add some more visual flair and everything to it before we move on to the next validation or something that we'll have to do. The thing is, when you're playing Tetris, the next piece is already visible over here, including, and then the scores are also done, right? So let's just add that in.
Got it.
So right now, we just have this current tetromino, and then we have the current row and the column where it is falling from and everything. So I'll just declare a new variable, and I'm going to call it next tetromino. And basically this will be our, our next tetromino. Okay. So when you start the game, your current tetromino would also be random, and your next tetromino would also be random. But when a piece sort of switches over, when we finish dropping a piece, when a piece is finished, we are saying current tetromino should be the next tetromino, and the next tetromino should be a random tetromino.
Nice.
So that will be our random thing. All right. So I'm just going to draw that next tetromino. I already have the x and y variable. I'm just going to reuse that. Say x. I mean, basically, I'll have to just start it from somewhere. So that would be cells. The number of, number of columns that I have multiplied by the cell size and plus 40. Arbitrarily, we'll just see if this works or not. All right. And y is equal to, let's say, 50. So I have, basically, it starts 50. And then I can just say, going to need a loop once again. So I'm just going to reuse the same loop structure that we have. All right. This, the only difference would be that instead of the current tetromino, because I'm drawing the next tetromino, I'm going to draw the next tetromino. So I have this, and I need to draw it, right? So if next tetromino of I of j is 1, then draw the piece, right? Draw the piece where? Draw it at x plus 1, y plus cell size, and I'll make it a little bit blue, right? So that's R. I'll reduce this, and blue I'll completely increase it to, let's say, 255.
Nice.
All right, so I'll draw this. So x plus is equal to cell size. All right, and every time it switches over, or every time we are done finishing with all of the columns in a row, we'll just reset x back to this. Reset x back to its original value, and I'll say y plus is equal to cell size. Right, so we have that. So the next tetromino would also be drawn on the screen.
Nice.
Right, so there you go. So that's our next tetromino. Hopefully that is the one that falls down. So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you have our, and it's nicely centered also. I'm like basically happy with that.
Right.
So yeah, so it does settle. Let's hope that I'm able to do this. You can see that I can still, because we've not taken care of column movement. We've not taken care of column movement, which we will do next.
Got it.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's handle column movement right now. Okay. So column movement is just two conditions.
Okay.
Pieces must ignore empty spaces either on their left or on their right. All right. So,
what does that mean?
Yeah. So over here, I mean, if you can see, I have this L piece over here, but you know that it's a 3 by 3 dimensional array. So when I move to the left, it should be able to completely move to the left. Basically, ignore these paddings and everything.
Right.
The same thing on the right hand side. That's number one. And number two, right? And 3 is it should not be able to move if, for example, there are other settled pieces. So in this case, let's say I have these 2 pillars of pieces already settled, and if I bring in, like, let's say this L, I should not be able to move them to the left or the right. They're basically locked in piece.
Got it.
All right.
Yes.
So you will see in our case, I'm just going to refresh that. Okay, on this end also. Okay, so let's say I have this. You'll see that I am actually pressing the left hand. I'm still not able to move.
Go.
All right. Yeah. And where are we doing the checks for that? We're just basically doing column greater than 0 and then column less than current.
It doesn't say whether it's 0 or 1.
It doesn't say if it is 0 or 1.
Right.
All right. So we'll need to handle this a little bit differently. Now, the thing is, I don't want to mix this event handling code along with the main code. So I'm going to put it into a separate file and then I'll include it. The reason for that is, right now this works very well on the desktop. We've basically done this to be played only over the desktop with a proper keyboard and everything. But eventually we will have to sort of put things like mobile handling and swipes and everything. All right, so that all of the event code goes onto this one file. Just going to remove this piece of code and I'm going to put it into an event.js file. All right, just say events.js. So I'll just put this. Nothing special about this file as such. And then over here, after the pieces, I'll just include events.js. So it's basically included. For all intents and purposes, the events.js has access to all of the variables in Tetris.js and and so on and so forth. So I have the events handled over here. Now, when the arrow is left, I do this column minus, I have this column plus. I'm going to change this just a little bit. When the arrow is pressed left, if columns is greater than 0, only then I do column minus. Let me introduce a new function over here that will handle column movement. I'm going to call this function can move horizontal. All right. Basically, this will return either a true or a false. If the piece can move horizontally, it is true. If it can't, it's a false. When can it move horizontally and when can it move? When can't it move? Once again, I'm going to need these 2 loops. Just going to, do this. Now let's do this, right? Ignore all the zeros. If there is a column with just zeros over there, just ignore them, right?
Correct.
So I'll just say if current tetromino of I of j is 0, ignore it. Basically, just continue. Don't do anything, right? If just basically go over to the next one. If current tetromino of I of j is equal to 1, right? So if there is content in that specific place, only then check for these conditions, and we only have to check for the columns as such. If j is less than 0, then return false. Basically, it has gone too much on the left hand side, right? And the same thing goes for the right hand side also. If j is greater than the number of columns, right? So that will be columns minus 1. So, but that would be j plus call, right? Which is the current call, right? So if j plus the the row and the call, they represent the current location of the tetromino. So correct. If they have gone, or if they have exceeded the limits of the number of columns that are available on the Tetris array, then return false. And the third condition, so these 2 conditions essentially take care of this, making sure that they don't exceed too much on the left or too much on the right. And the third condition, we'll have to make sure that they are not able to move if they are in between settled pieces, not just in between, but if there are settled pieces in their way. Right. And the way to do that is to just say if Tetris array of I plus row of j plus call. Oh man, I really hope I have not made this too confusing. Current tetromino of I of j is equal to 3, then return false, right? If the, okay, so what I'm trying to do here is that if let's say I try to move this piece here, then this would become a 3.
Correct.
If it becomes a 3, I'll just say return false, right? So that's what happens. But at the end, I mean, if it passes all these checks, then just say return true. So that this function always returns a true, but if these conditions are met, it will return a false.
Okay.
Let's just go back.
One small thing.
Yeah.
Current in the line 205. Yeah. I of
j. I'm so glad you caught that. This would have been so difficult to debug. I of j. Just have to make sure that all of our all of our things are okay. So this is always okay. I'm so glad we just copied at least the loop code. All right, that being done, we just have to basically handle this in our events.js. So I have the arrow left, right? The thing about this is, if the arrow is pressed left, I'm going to say column minus minus. All right, and then I'll say if you can move horizontal, then transpose the piece, draw the board. If you cannot move horizontal, remember it returns a false, then I'll just say column plus plus, basically restoring it to what it was before I did this. So as soon as the user presses the left arrow, anyways, I'm reducing the column, check if it is possible to move left. If it is move left, then transpose piece and draw board, or else just do a column plus plus, meaning reset or undo this minus minus that we are doing. Same thing goes for the column right. All right, so I don't need, yeah, so as soon as the right is pressed, I'll just say column plus plus. If can move horizontal, if you can move horizontal, then transpose the piece, draw the board, else just say column minus minus. Reset this column plus plus that you've done if you're not able to move horizontal. Let's see if this works. Number one, I mean, I went completely, which is fine. I'll tell you, there is this one thing that we'll have to do when we do this transpose piece. Okay. But you can see that, it can move completely, basically. But let's see if I'm able to move if there is a piece in between. Oh, it still moves.
There is,
yeah.
I know what is the error.
Yeah, what is it?
In your code, you didn't call the function. You just named it as can move horizontal. Above one on the left.
Okay.
That's not a. I just forgot to call it.
Nice. Good catch. All right. Let's do this again.
And now transpose piece, huh?
Yeah.
Is that a mistake?
Yeah. Transpose piece is the mistake.
Oh, okay.
Or basically we've not handled that.
Okay.
So when we do the transpose piece, all right, let's just go over there. So this should move, or this is basically working, but let's just revisit our transpose piece. And yeah, so there you go. So that's our transpose piece. All right. I'm already doing a plus is equal to current tetromino. Okay. So what are we missing? So right now we just take all of the values from the current tetromino and then we add it to the Tetris array, right? So basically we'll have to check if this Tetris array is already having a value. Only if it is having a value, then you add the current tetromino.
Okay.
All right, or else you just don't add it at all. So if this is not equal to 2, which means don't overwrite it on a settled piece.
Correct,
on top of a
correct,
settled
correct.
piece is what we are trying.
That makes sense.
Right? So yeah, so now let's just do or see what happens. So this one, this transpose piece we'll still have to take care of, but I will show you what, okay. So let's do this. So you will see that I'm not able to, I was not able to do it. Yeah, go beyond that one.
Nice.
So here I'm trying to go beyond. All right, let me settle this over here and try to put a piece. Oh, what a perfect piece I got on the left. So,
oops,
too soon.
Yeah.
On the left, I'm trying. Okay, so now it's okay. So those conditions are essentially handled.
Nice.
But let's take a look at one thing that we have. Okay, so if I do this, why am I not able to go to the right? Whereas I was able to go to the right over here. I mean, there are some issues here, obviously, right? So let me just refresh it back. So
that's perfect.
Okay, yeah, see, I'm able to go to the left essentially. And then basically it errors out. So what happens is, so the column check essentially works in that yeah, I'm really hoping that it is working, because let's say I went to the left. So I say this one can move horizontal, or else just to a column plus. So basically it resets it back. I have the same for the arrow right as well, right? And then arrow down will do this, and arrow up will essentially rotate the thing.
Okay, so can move horizontal should give a should return and false, right?
Yeah,
And
it
it's
should
not.
return a false. It's probably not returning a false.
Yeah.
Let's just do this. If j is less than 0, then return a false. So basically this is j, right? I mean basically I will have to check if it is less than 0 only. Right?
Yeah.
Basically that's how you do this. Oh no, it's always j plus column. Right? I mean, because you'll have to think of it in the context of the Tetris array. So if on the of the
piece.
whole. So I think we forgot this.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay.
Now. Oh, it doesn't move to the left.
Perfect. Oops.
Alright. Yeah, that's fine. That's because what is happening is, I mean, if it's a 3x3 array, or there is an empty array over here, and then it tries to transpose it, basically transposing it on rows that are not available at all.
Right.
So on our transpose piece, we will have to handle two conditions. Let me go back to our transpose piece. Okay, two conditions. Number one, that this doesn't exist at all. I mean, it is entirely possible that this specific value or array doesn't exist at all. So I can just say if, basically I'll have to check if this exists or not. And to do that, I can just say if type of, this is a JavaScript trick. If type of Tetris array of i.row is equal to undefined, then just continue. Don't do anything.
Okay.
And the same thing goes for the column also. I mean, if that row doesn't exist, then don't do anything, ignore it. And the same thing goes for that specific cell also. So just j plus col. If the same thing happens for the column as well.
Okay.
So these two conditions should essentially make sure that when we are transposing it, we don't transpose off into Tetris arrays, array values that don't exist. Oh, okay. There you go. One more. All right. Let's see this fall down. And
oops.
Yeah, it just went. Yeah, through. That's because I was pressing the down arrow. And when we do the down arrow, I mean, I think let's just go back to our code. We're just saying row plus plus.
True.
We are not saying drop the piece. So let's just say don't do a row plus plus. I mean, because the drop piece has all of the conditions and everything.
Correct.
Right? Correct. So having done that, let's just do boom. So now it should be able to, like, you know, right? So I think we are okay. So let me try. No right, no left.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm able to not
go through beyond
beyond
wow.
this one.
So it's almost done.
No, I mean, we still have to handle rotation, because now see, if I like bring it very close, and if I rotate it, okay, that worked for some. Oh, there you go. That is an issue, right?
Yes,
so we'll have to handle rotation.
Got it.
Let's just see what we have in store for rotation checks.
Absolutely.
Number one, we'll have to ensure that, I mean, remember that a piece will basically look like this. In this case, I've used the I tetromino as a representation. If I rotate it this close to the border, you'll note that it will basically go beyond the Tetris array. That's number one. The thing to do over here is to ensure that it is able to come out.
Got it.
When you do a rotate, just make sure that it is at least represented completely inside the Tetris array. That's number one. And number two, if there is ever a situation like this, right? I mean, if I have to rotate, it should not be able to rotate.
Correct.
So we need to handle that. Okay. How do we do that? So let's just go to our rotation code. So arrow left, arrow right, arrow down, and then arrow up. All right. So to do that, there is no easy way to do this. It's a little bit complicated, but we'll still have to do that. Basically, lot of conditions.
Right.
At least 3 different conditions on the left, on the right, and then, you know, between the pieces.
Got it.
So I'll say let rotated tetromino is equal to rotate. Okay, so rotate the current piece and then put it into this one, and then I can just basically start doing the checks. The checks would be, I mean, they would be a little bit unorthodox, or I'm basically just copying this for the loop alone. All right. What do I mean by unorthodox? Not unorthodox, but I'm just going to show you something. So basically, if after rotation, right? Oh,
so you need to do it.
Yeah, I need to do it for rotated tetromino.
Got it.
All right. If J plus call is less than 0, right? Meaning after the rotation, if it's J plus column is gone beyond the Tetris array on the left hand side, then I'll just say while I'll basically put this into a loop until it comes out completely. I'll say column plus plus. Basically add values to it so that it comes out.
Makes sense.
I'll do the same thing for the right hand side.
Yes.
While, I mean, if J plus call is, it should be less than 0, greater than calls minus 1. Calls is the number of columns that you have on the array. Do the same thing. While calls minus 1, just say calls minus, so that it comes out. So if there is ever a piece that has gone beyond this one, just shift it so that it comes out complete.
Correct.
That's the intention that I have. So that takes care of the rotation on the edges of the Tetris array itself.
Correct.
What about when it is rotated? I mean, between settled pieces. There is no easy way to do this, so I'm just going to sort of do this. I'm going to declare a variable called can rotate, and I'm going to set this as true in the beginning. All right. Basically have the same loop, and then just check the condition, just like how you said check the condition for collision. What was the condition that we did for collision? Basically that equal to 3 that we are doing, right? Basically the same thing I'm going to do here.
Got it.
So if this Tetris array dot I dot row plus j dot call plus rotated tetromino is equal to 3. If it ever becomes 3, then you cannot rotate.
Got it.
Can rotate is equal to false. I don't need to process this anymore. I can just say break. Break. This will just break me out of this j loop, the for loop. I'll have to break out of the I loop also. So I can just say if not can rotate, then break out of the outer loop as well. All right. And right after doing all of the loops, I can say if can rotate, if you can indeed rotate, then do the transpose piece and draw board, but just make sure that you copy the values from the rotated array into the current tetromino, into the current, the rotated tetromino to the current tetromino. I want to do a deep copy essentially, right? And the easier way to do this, by the way, this was suggested by one of our viewers, Animesh. He basically went ahead and corrected some of our code that we did for the ripples. He made a code change, and that's where I basically saw this easy to do deep copy. So I can just say current tetromino is equal to JSON dot parse of JSON dot stringify the rotated tetromino.
Wow.
So basically what this does, it converts this into a JSON string, parse it, and then just set it back into this. Wow. So it creates a totally new array, and then so this is an easy to do thing.
Nice.
Deep copy, double dimensional array or triple dimensional array or what have you. Just easily convert it into another array. Because if you just say is equal to rotated tetromino, I think it just copies references, but it never does this. All right. So this should essentially take care of rotation. Let me do here. You can see that it has indeed come out. There is no rotation for this one. I'm going to ignore this, but look at this. It does come out. Will it rotate over here? It didn't rotate there. So let me,
now you can go in between these two and try to rotate.
No rotation. It didn't rotate.
Perfect.
So that takes care of that.
Let's get an Z or an S and C on the edges, because that was what was giving.
That gave us a bug the last time. Alright, so let's do this.
Yeah, perfect.
It comes out.
Yeah,
it comes out.
correct.
Yeah. So that takes care of rotation.
Right.
All right, Ravi. So we have come this far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we've handled all of the conditions or all of the validations that we need to handle.
Right.
We do, however, need to think about clearing the rows.
Correct.
All right. And the way we do that is, let's say I have a board like this.
Mm-hmm.
A row is complete when the sum of all of the columns of a specific row equals the number of columns that you have.
Multiplied by 2.
Multiplied by 2 because we assign a settled piece. We assign 2 to a settled piece.
Got it.
So if let's say if there are, over here there are 10 rows. If the sum of each row becomes 20.
Column.
No, the sum of each row. Sum of the columns
Columns
of
of
each
each
row
row.
becomes 20, then that column is complete.
Correct.
And the way we complete it, or the way we remove these pieces, we start from the top and then we end at the at the bottom.
Yeah.
So if there are 2 rows that are getting completed like this, then we'll make sure that the top row gets completed or removed first, and then the bottom row happens.
Makes
So
sense.
that's one thing that we'll have to take care of. Okay. What do I mean by remove? By remove, whatever rows are above it, we will have to like sort of copy them down.
Correct.
Copy them over it, and whatever rows are empty, they just basically remain empty. So in this way, if I have, let's say, removed the 13th row over here, then you will see that anything above 13th row gets copied, and this needs to happen all the way up, right? So it needs to start from a specific row and copy all of the values from the top to the to whichever row was getting completed, right?
Right.
So let's just handle that. So we've done all of this. So our function, I'm going to create this function called row completion. All right. And while I'm writing that, when will this row completion be called? Each time we settle a piece. Each time you settle a piece. I mean, we have a specific piece of code in the drop piece that handles when a piece is settled. Right at that point, we will call this row completion. All right, which will basically do this. Now I've copied this in an array so that in a buffer so that I don't have to sort of scroll through the entire code looking for this specific piece of code. Our first job is to essentially total all of the values in a column for a specific row. So I'll have a variable here called total is equal to 0. And over here, I would just say total plus is equal to whatever is at this specific spot, right? Right? Now, at the end of totaling everything in all of the columns, if the total becomes the number of columns that we have into 2, because we have assigned 2 to each settled piece, then I know that that row is complete. But I cannot remove it right now because we are right now only at the totaling phase and we need to sort of collect all of the completed rows and then remove them one by one. I'm going to have a variable here called completed rows. It's an array which will contain the indexes of all of the completed rows. So I'll just say push I. So now I have a list of all of the completed rows. For every completed row, I'll say completed row dot for each. The for each is like a nice for each function. We all know what a for each function is. So for every row, we'll have this lambda function. I'm not sure what it is called in the JavaScript world. I'm guessing it's called an anonymous function, but it's called lambda functions in the Scala world, which I'm a little bit used to. I'm going to call it as such. And over here for each row, I'm going to say for let I is equal to a row. So basically start from that row, I greater than or equal to 0, go up, right? I minus minus, make sure that it goes up. And for each row, I of course have to do the j also. J is equal to 0, j less than Tetris array of a row dot length j plus plus. All right. So for each column, what you do is, let's have a variable over here called previous row, because I'll have to copy the previous row onto the next row. All right. And previous row would just be I minus 1, which is basically whatever this I is, and then the previous row. And if this previous row is greater than or equal to 0, right? Because what if, because you'll have to remember at some point it will come over here and then it will become -1. So we don't want to basically have any array bounds exception or bounds error. So if the previous row is greater than or equal to 0, then Tetris array of I of j, which is the current row, is equal to Tetris array of the previous row dot j.
Correct.
Right? Basically just transposing everything over here.
Yeah.
So that's my completed rows as such. Another thing that I'll have to take care, let's just test this and then we'll worry about, calculating the score and everything, because right now this only takes care of, completing a piece. Where is my drop piece? I'm looking for my drop piece method. I wonder if there is like an easy way for me to just search for methods. Is it Control F12? Hey, what is this?
This went to the definition.
Oh, okay. Okay, I somehow vaguely remember having Control F12. Okay, it's immaterial to the conversation right now. All right, so let's say I have this row completion thing going on, and let's see if it is able to complete rows. For the love of God, give me good pieces. Okay. There is a way to, of course, just say, give me only this piece, right? Boom. Exactly as you would expect it.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, let me place it here. This one gets placed here. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, I would really like to see how it is in the middle, right? I mean, let's say I leave a gap or anything over here.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. You know what? there you go. So I could actually do this.
Yeah.
Yes. That worked beautifully.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think the majority of the
gameplay
is basically done. Let's just paint the scores. Let's calculate scores and paint the scores. There are 3 things that are calculated whenever you're talking about, or there are 3 things that are used when you are talking about Tetris scores. And those are the score itself, right? How many rows you have completed. I'm going to call it. Oh no, it's already a variable. All right, rows completed. All right, so how many rows you've completed, and what's the other one? The stage, right? I also want to make sure that every time your stage increases, the speed of the Tetris also increases.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Right now, the speed is only determined by this one variable. Okay. And I'm going to change that, and I'm going to say.
So stage is like the level, right?
Level. Oh yeah, I should probably call it
level.
Yeah, I should probably call it level.
Yeah.
So I'll call it level. What's the other thing? Speed. Let's call it gameplay speed. And just so that we all are on the same page, gameplay speed is essentially the number of milliseconds before the next, how speed or how fast it drops. I'm going to initialize all of them over here, right before the Tetris thing starts. I'm going to say score is equal to 0. Rows completed is also 0. We are at level 1 because you do start at level 1, and gameplay speed, we'll set it at 500 milliseconds. I know right now it's 300 milliseconds. I only did that so that our testing could be a little bit faster, but since we are nearing the completion, I want to set it at whatever is. So there you go. So I have the gameplay speed. The idea I have here is that every time the level increases, we sort of reduce some milliseconds from this gameplay speed.
Yeah.
All right. So how do I calculate the score? I'll calculate the score right after this row completion. And I'll write a function for that and say function calculate score. Okay. How is score calculated? So for this, the number of completed rows, I will just pass in as parameter over here. Okay. Num completed rows. So your score would be score plus is equal to the number of completed rows multiplied by an arbitrary score 2, right? I'm also going to do something. All right, let's do this. If you complete more than or equal to 4 rows, I'll say score plus is equal to 20. You get 20 additional points for completing 4 rows at the same time. If you have completed more than, let's say, 3 rows at the same time, you get an additional 10 points. So if you completed 4 at the same time, it would be whatever, 20 plus 10. Do you also want to do it for 2, or I think that should be enough, right?
Your call.
Let's give an additional 5 points if you've completed more than 2. All right. These are, I mean, I'm not sure these are the proper way to sort of calculate scores, but I'm just making it up as we go along. All right. So yeah. So there you go. So if so if you do score 4 at the same time, you would get an additional 20 plus 10 plus 5. It's about 35 points. Right out of the gate. Okay. Now what? Okay. So now I have this going on. I also need a way to increase the level of the game. So I'll say if the score is I mean every let's say 350 points we increase the level.
No, that's too much. A little less. 100 points.
100 points. That will be too quick.
Okay.
You will reach 100 in like
no time.
Yeah, in no time.
Okay.
So so let's
without level.
Oh, you know what we have? We have this level, right? So if I can say if the score becomes greater than, let's say, whatever level I am at multiplied by 250, then I know that you have completed that level.
Perfect.
And then I can say level plus plus. All right. Basically increases my level, and then gameplay speed, I can say minus is equal to 50. So it reduces 50 milliseconds every time the level increases.
Okay. And the level increases based on number of rows completed.
Number of rows completed. Okay. And so now I have this calculate score. Calculate score, I'll call it from this row completion. Right. So if the row is indeed complete, then I can say, basically I'll have to say how many rows you have completed. So completed rows dot length.
Perfect.
So if this was 0, if I've completed 0 rows, everything over here would be 0, nothing would be increased, nothing would change.
Correct.
All right. And now comes the part of just displaying it on the screen itself.
Right.
Okay. So I have the draw piece. I mean, basically we just have the one. This is draw piece. I mean, I just have this one function called draw board, which just basically draws everything on the board. And I'm going to use this only to draw the score on the screen itself.
Right.
Okay. And
that's where you do the next.
Yeah.
Piece.
So yes. So I can say X. I can basically start doing the score at basically the same X location, but instead of making it so much offset, right over here, I'll probably start. I mean, I'm going to start putting the score at this location over here on the screen. So I'll put it here. I'm sorry about that. All right. So I'll put it over here. All right. So that would just be cell size plus 20. Okay. And then Y would just be Y plus is equal to, I mean, so sorry. Y is equal to height minus 50. All right. This is the part that I'm definitely going to fast forward through because, because I mean, it's not essential to gameplay as such.
Sure.
So I'll just fast forward through this one. Yeah, so there you go, man. I mean, I've basically displayed all the scores. I have the score, the level,
and the number of rows.
And the number of rows that we've completed. All right. We still haven't handled how you will finish this game.
Correct.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
because what you can do right now is you can just stand and you can see that it will, I mean, this
Yeah.
thing still continues to
Correct,
go on because the row
correct.
is not complete.
Yeah.
How do you know that a game is complete? If the top row
Yeah.
is, let's say, if the sum of all of the top rows, columns in the top rows is greater than 2, greater than or equal to 2, then you know that the top row is occupied and you cannot fit in any more. You cannot drop any more pieces. That's how we
Okay.
know that the game is complete. Right? If there is anything on the top row, you cannot drop any more pieces. You cannot. Even if it is right there at the edge, you
Yeah.
cannot drop any more pieces because you have a piece right here on the top.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
Right? So, so if this Tetris array of 0, any of the columns have any value in it, it's gone.
Okay.
I mean, if it is greater than or equal to 2, then you know that the game is complete.
What if a T piece is... you're starting at the top row, right?
I am starting at the top row.
But then won't a T piece have 3? Total?
No. I mean, so the idea is that if you have reached the top, I'm not dropping any more pieces for you. It's game over.
Correct.
Right? So
Yes.
if there is anything over here on the top row, then the game is over.
Correct.
Even if it is at the edges, even if it is possible for you to drop, even though there is an edge, no. I'm
Right.
calling it game over.
Correct.
Basically, that's the condition I'm saying
Correct.
that we'll handle.
Okay.
All right. Let's see how that plays out, right?
So
So yeah, of course, I'm going to be needing a flag, and I'll say where is game over. I mean, first of all, now we are going to initialize it as false, basically. Excuse me. So if it is game over, so how do I know that it's game over, right? Of course, I'm going to need a new function, and I'm going to call it check game over.
check game over.
Right?
Yeah.
And all I have to do is say for let j is equal to 0, j less than the number of columns, j plus plus, if Tetris array of of 0 of j, if the top row alone, right, if any of the values in the top row alone is greater than or equal to 0, then I know that it's game over. I'll say is game over is equal to true, and I'll just do a return from here. That's it. It's game over. No more gameplay, right? And when will I check for game over? So I will check for game over at, let's say, when I'm dropping the piece itself. I have this row completion, and I also check for game over. All right. But what happens when you do a game over? All I have to do is remember where we have this Tetris. I'll say if is game over, then just return. Do not call this set timeout. Basically, it's game over for you. All right. But I want you to call the draw board once, at least, before returning. Why draw board? Because I need to basically say or put the message game over.
Got it.
Right? And where am I going to do this? I'll put it in the draw board. Okay. So at the very end of our draw piece, I'll just have a condition which says that if is game over, then so what I want to do is I just want to show the message game over followed by the scores, whatever scores he's done. But before I just show the message game over, what I'll do is I'll sort of paint the screen with with an opaque rectangle or sort of a semi-transparent rectangle, so that you're just barely able to see the background and everything. All right. And to do that, I'll just say if it is game over, then first things first, I'll say context.fill style. I mean, this is something that I'll definitely fast forward through. All right. Okay. So let's see if the message works. All right. So I have it falling, and yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I think one thing we can do is just make sure that these fonts remain the same size.
Remain the same. Correct.
So I mean, basically, instead of initializing the font once, I can just sort of put it over here so that you can see the fonts do the same thing every time. Yeah.
Yay.
So even the scores are visible
Correct.
after it says game over.
Yes.
And everything for you.
Yes.
Let's just make sure that we are able to increase the scores. Oh wow, what a streak of luck. I mean, we did test it, right? I mean, the increase of the scores.
No.
No? Okay. Hopefully, okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so level is still remained at 1, which is great. Oh! Okay. Okay, I mean, I think it's just gameplay from now on.
Yes.
So what we'll do is we'll just put this on our site.
Yes.
And we'll have the viewers basically test it out.
Yeah.
One warning though, this will only work for the desktop for now. When
Right.
we find time, we'll port it for the mobile also.
Got it.
Because basically for the events, we've only managed to sort of map the keys right now.
Correct.
So it's just the arrow keys for now. But if you can, I mean, at a later point in time when we have some time, or if it is so much if it's your inclination, you can go ahead and add the mobile events also. It's a little bit tricky to handle mobile events.
Yes, right.
Because you want to sort of map the same keys that you have over here, the up, down, left and right, onto swipes. And mapping those swipes are a little bit, it's a little bit tricky in JavaScript. But if we have the time, we'll basically do this. I think that about completes this particular gameplay for us.
Perfect.
Speaking about what we have in line for the next few weeks, I think a very long time ago I did sort of an ant simulation. Ant colony simulation.
Okay.
So there would be an ant colony, and basically this ant colony would produce ants whose job it would be to basically search for food, and then they would search for food and then once they find food, they would sort of notify the colony that they have found food at so and so location. All the ants would like sort of go over there. All right, so I have that in mind. I sort of want to improve that into a real, I took a lot of liberties with that program, and when you see the simulation, the ant colony simulation, you'll immediately see that it has a lot of flaws. I want to sort of model it on the real world, where when an ant, let's say for example, if it finds food, it leaves a pheromone trail back to its nest, and other ants that have smelled that pheromone trail will basically go back to the food source. They would know to follow the pheromone, it's called pheromone trail back to the food and back to the colony and so on and so forth.
Okay, got it.
So I sort of want to improve on that. So we can either do that, and I'm pretty sure we cannot finish it in a week. Even that in a week. So that would also be a multi-episode thing. So we could do that.
Sure.
Or if we want to do a one-episode thing, I think we can attempt to do flocking in just one flocking simulation.
You're right.
So it's either flocking simulation or ant colony simulation next week.
Perfect.
Depending on the time, we'll decide what to do. That's all we had for this week. Thank you so much for joining. Yep. Have a great week ahead.